Technology is a complex and volatile industry. That is why it's high time to step up and call bullshit on big tech firms that only spew information that benefits them. This is With Absolute Specificity, the program that's unafraid to shoot from the hip about all things tech and marketing. Get your dose of accurate information with a generous portion of humor right here. Get frank wisdom and plain-spoken facts straight from the source with host Jason A. Wood. You can count on him to bring the harsh yet practical truths to the surface. Get ready for another episode of With Absolute Specificity.
All right, guys, welcome again to With Absolute Specificity, doing shit on purpose. Listen, I've got a great guest today. This guy actually came to us being a client of ours. So he's seen that side of specificity, but more importantly, we get his credentials on what he understands about marketing, which is always a great leg up on getting a conversation started. His name is Greg Cummings. He's just started a new company called Power 100. Greg, welcome, man.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me, Jason. It's been known you for quite a while now and numerous different paths in life, and glad to be here.
Yeah, and you know, the kind of how this all came to fruition for you, your new company is interesting. And I know my listeners will dig this because we're always talking about business pathway. So when we met Greg, he was the marketing director, or what was your title at the window place?
Vice president of basically everything, customer service, customer facing.
Okay.
Sales, marketing, so, you got it.
Bottom line is my team interfaced with Greg. He ran one of his, I'm sure many duties was to run the marketing. And it was for a company within the window industry. And he went through that iteration. That company did well, continues to do well. And then he got out on his own and he started a whole company surrounding that industry. And Greg, I'm going to let you explain to our listeners exactly what you've done here, what you've come up with, what you put together.
Appreciate that intro. That saves me some words. At the end of the day, though, I look at it as an entrepreneur. I kind of define an entrepreneur as somebody that goes out, identifies a gap, and then creates a solution that is not necessarily surrounded by dollar signs and profits and, you know, all that. And so that is really how I look at an entrepreneur. What did they create? What gap did they solve? And 9 times out of 10, you see these massive success stories, you know, everything from Amazon to Tesla. I mean, what starts as one thing morphs into something else. And there's just a sheer gap of service, right? Or a gap of in the business's ability to do something. And, you know, Jason, that's what we saw and really started to fine tune that on a regional level. And then we saw some success with that while I was with the window company. And then I said, wait a minute, why not try to do this thing on a national level? Ran some tests and worked on it on the backside for, about a year, developing algorithms, ranking systems, putting lists together. I mean, it was a lot of work. It was about 18 months of pure and utter data jamming, which I cannot stand. So I'm glad my eyes are uncrossed at this point in the game.
I love it, man. I said the same thing about going through the whole process, like going public, man. It was like, there's so much administrative that has to get done. And that is so far outside of my skill set. Like without a team of people, I would still be sitting in an office going, but I think I want to go do this, because all of that is just so difficult. So tell us what Power 100 does. What is it? What's the gap that the Power 100 is filling in the window space?
So basically every single industry within the consumer, home improvement space lacks a company that is 100% dedicated to solving, kind of vetting them out, right? Everything's a pay to play model, it seems. And even the good ones start off as a true thing. And then, like something like Angie's List or whatever, it turns into this big pay to play and push to the top. You know how that works, right? So what we did is we developed that algorithm that ranks we start with 7,600 window and door CEOs. Nobody ever thinks that there's that many window and door CEOs in the country, but there is, all shapes and sizes. But our algorithm quickly filters that out to about a third of that. And then we're able to then decipher from there with some additional algorithms. But the gap that it solves is being able to let a consumer know, hey, that company, because of that leader, is going to be a very good option for me. We're not a lead gen. We're not anything like that. We are a sheer platform to rank the window and door CEOs, not the company. Because just like when Tom Brady came to my Buccaneers, right? It was like the Bucs were the bottom of the barrel, the laughing stock. Like, unfortunately, they always are, but I'm a proud, diehard fan. But I also was in Boston for 13 years, so I watched Brady through all his championships. But when Brady came down, the Bucs went to number 1, right? The Super Bowl odds. So same concept. We rank these CEOs because if they go to a different company, then that other company is going to have the advantage at the end of the day. Right. And it's all about leadership, Jason.
I think every company's success or failure always turns on leadership. And, for me, Greg, as we first started talking about Power 100 with you guys and the possibility of us partnering together on a project to do some business together, I kind of took a step back, and Brittany and I had this conversation. It seems to me the industries that this kind of approach really needs are the ones that, I don't know if there's a direct correlation, have lead aggregators as one of their primary thrusts of business, right? So like where you've got companies that don't do anything but buy leads from Google and then sell them into their own industry, windows and doors, garage doors, HVAC, all of these industries where the consumer has no idea that when they're filling out a form, they're not talking to a window company. They're talking to an algorithm in Texas that's deploying form fill and content to them. And then that company is selling the lead. So all of like the core competency value props of a company, what makes a company good? Where am I going to get good service? Gets lost in all of that through a lead aggregation type industry. So in your endeavor, Power 100 seeks to solve that by illuminating where the fantastic leadership in the industry is and where consumers can rely on that kind of company to do business with, right?
Yeah, exactly. And not only that is we don't even have links to the company pages. So that's how committed I am to saying, no, we are not a lead gen source. We are a dictionary, right? We're the beacon of light in the industry. And so you come to us as a resource. And then likewise, the CEOs come together through Power Chat podcasts, through Power Groups, which is a small networking opportunity where 3 to 5 CEOs within the Power rankings get together under thank you, my first time. And they're in non-competing markets as well. So they're really able to open up and to work out some difficulties together. But the philosophy that we have, and then there's no exception to this rule ever, is going to be that great companies have great leaders. There's no exception whatsoever to that rule.
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I think anybody else, because you used Amazon as an example, I think anybody else, any other bookworm that wanted to start a platform to help, avid readers have a resource where they could go find any book they wanted to and buy it, not have to go to the retail store, for instance, hunt and search for it. And that's what Bezos set out to do. With different leadership, they're just a really big book sales company. And because it was Jeff Bezos who had big vision, big organizational skills, it turned into the largest e-commerce, platform in the world. And to your point, I think that speaks to leadership. What do you see, so many of these companies and what you've done in your past, so many of these companies rely on technology both internally and for things like marketing. And one of the things, and of course, we're in proximity to this, is the digital marketing space, I think, in terms of an industry, not in terms of like my company versus somebody else's, really lacks a vision right now or a pathway that's going to get companies to their defined audiences without pillaging consumer data and privacy and stepping on those bounds. What do you see going on in that space right now?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. What I see after talking to, hundreds of CEOs and within the space particularly, and reviewing thousands of CEOs and their companies, is there's a gap. They are hiring somebody to do their marketing that doesn't know how to sell their product, doesn't know how to install their product, doesn't know how to service, doesn't know how to warranty it. And that's really the gap. I feel like I get people asking me all the time, well, you could do this for HVAC companies. You could do this for solar companies. You could do this. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I know Windows and Doors better. Yeah, I know Windows and Doors. I've studied it for years. I know this. Somebody can't fool me, right? As far as what they're doing and if they're doing it the right way. So, but going back to the marketing gap, what you were talking about is there's a separation. I hire somebody to do my marketing, and it's good data in gets good results. Bad data in gets bad results. So if they're not able to interact with their point of contact, so it could be on the marketer side where that account representative is just really not competent because they're just hiring them because they're good at technology or they're good at their system. They're not good at being that liaison between the client and what actually needs to happen, because the number one rule in business is the client really doesn't know what they want, right? That's why they're hiring a professional to assist them. So take the lead, grab them, by the hand and say, okay, I need this. And, how many companies can slide you across, Jason, their customer profile? Can they do it? Do they have the customer profile? There's probably a minimum of 3 customers that they go after. And I had individual profiles on each one that I slid across to Brittany when we worked together, and we were able to have tremendous targeted success.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, that is such a good point in the marketing conversation, is that companies very rarely, from an internal marketing perspective, understand their high likely conversion personas. They think their audience is a city, or they think their audience is homeowners, or they think they don't understand the way it breaks down. Sure, this person is situationally dynamic wise set up to maybe be in, proximity to a window purchase. But who wants windows right now? Who's buying them? What's a house look like? What's that financial? And you're right. We have, as a marketer, and it's just a generic marketing statement, always more success when we're sitting across the table from a marketer. But you brought something up that I get a big kick out of in our industry. I think so few people understand this. It is so commonplace when we go to talk to a company about their marketing that the marketing director or the chief marketing officer doesn't know anything about marketing. They've been tasked to manage the budget, the marketing budget. So what you get is a quasi CFO who's managing expenditures and trying to quantify ROI and understands nothing about the process of marketing, nothing about things like cost per acquisition and segmentation and just none of that stuff.
How do they filter that out in the interview though? It's like, that's always been a big point of emphasis is, I've been asked like, hey, can you talk to this potential CMO for me? And I was like, yeah, I can, of course. But, the first thing I do is say, okay, tell me what you know about the windows and doors. Well, I don't know anything. I'm like, okay, well then you can't market this. Marketing is a word that is really just a kind of fancy for sales, right? Like you got to know how to sell the product. It's a softer word than sales. Sales is a bad word now, right? So everybody's a marketer, but really if you don't know how to sell and position things, then you're not able to communicate to your audience and give them what they want. So
if you don't understand your audience, you don't understand potential objections. And to drag everything back to sales, because that's what I am at my core too, as a sales guy. If you don't know what the objection is, you have no chance of selling it. So marketing has to first endeavor to understand the consumer's mindset to the product before they can even begin to say intelligent things that are going to resonate with the customer. And that's a challenge for most marketers because they don't come from that background. Well, I know Brittany got a big kick of working with you because Brittany's saying is this, and I know you'll appreciate this. The biggest pain in the ask clients are always the best clients to work with because those are people on it. Like, so they appreciate success because they know what that looks like. They help you evolve out of things that aren't working because, again, they understand what the hell they're doing. They know their industry. They know their consumers. And the worst client to work with is the apathetic client because they'll work with you. You don't get the feedback. How important do you think it is to these CEOs that you're talking to and that you're assessing to get feedback from a platform like yours that puts it, juxtapose an entire industry? I mean, that's got to be invaluable to these guys.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some amazing conversations and there's been really some key similarities between the guys and gals at the top, right? And what that is their commitment to innovation. These CEOs they're not in their business, they're working on their business, but they know everything that's going in and going on in their business. And their first grab is always culture, like their employees. And it goes back to enterprise. I grew up as an enterprise rent-a-car, kid right out of school, moved up, ran the ranks really quickly, had a good career. But the biggest thing that they taught me was if you take care of your customers, you take care of your employees, profits are always going to follow. And so I've kind of taken that with a grain of salt and then I put in the backside of it. And I say, if companies and CEOs can grow off of a geographical standpoint and provide charitable contributions, then they are run soundly. So I kind of combined all of that together. That's kind of the high level of the ranking system, by the way. And so at the end of the day, when these companies have these three different pillars, they're able to be very successful. And those similarities definitely traject them to the top.
Well, I just can see what kind of advantage that would be. I mean, I put that to my own industry. If somebody had an objective perspective on CEOs, but understood the industry dynamics and challenges and could go in and say, here's the top 100 and whether you fit that mold or not, to see what characteristics are present in common with all of the top players in your industry, I think could be phenomenal in terms of just self-development and trying to gear yourself to be more successful in a given industry. So what's the play here for Power 100 in terms of market acquisition moving forward? What's the goal? Is it the monetization of the platform? Is it to expand in a product offerings? What's on the horizon?
Yes, we got really a couple things that are going on, launching in June and July. So every July, a new list comes out, and then we shred the old one. We don't live in the past. There's no history of where you were because sales guy here, we live in the present, right? Are you successful today? And then in this space, you're dependent on your teams that are installing the product to really give you that shining light. So what you had last year, you might not have this year. So we want to make sure that we shred the old list and we put the new list in play. So that's coming, obviously, July 4th is when the new list, the top 5 drop. And then we kind of have a little July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, we release a little bit at each time. But we are introducing come June is going to be power chats, where I'm going to be kind of having conversations just like this, video podcast, if you will, with these leaders about what works, what doesn't work, kind of their story on their way to the top and what's worked for them, what hasn't, and also their charitable contributions, different things like that.
What platforms are you going to share that on?
So we are planning on having those podcasts on basically anywhere that we can, but I really don't even want to go down the traditional, Apple Podcasts and all that stuff because we're doing video. The short answer is we're not sure. They're trying to convince me to do multiple channels. I really just want to put it on YouTube and keep it on our social media. Click to go, because I'm not interested in gaining, this huge following of, whatever from everyone else. I'm only interested in working with the top 100 CEOs and improving their company, and then continuing to evaluate the rest of the field as other companies move up. But we got power chats, new power rankings, and then power groups are going to be coming where we're centralized. We are going to be bringing in 3 to 5 CEOs from non-competing markets under an NDA, and they're going to be able to get very tactical with different solutions. That's kind of what's coming, and we're excited. As far as monetizing this whole thing, we are looking for sponsors. So we have 3 sponsorships also that are going to be going July 1st, and we'll be running a year-long campaign with them. And the whole principle of it is the same as with the Power 100. I want people to get to know the CEO and the leader of all these companies, because at the end of the day, there is not one great company that you don't know the leader to. And that just holds true. You go to your favorite restaurant, you know the owner, Jason. I'm positive of it. You go to a random restaurant, you don't know the owner, right? So as these things, or maybe you do, and maybe that's why you go to that restaurant.
Right.
I got a buddy that literally just follows chefs around, and groups of ownership. So that whole premise of, as you grow, when you're a small company, man, it's really easy to meet and talk to all your clients, right? But as you grow, you lose that sales pitch kind of changes from, we're a small company, you get everybody you want, to we're a big company, you're safe. And what I want to do is give this blanketed solution to where the CEO still has that voice straight into the consumer's ear, straight into everyone's ear, and they get to know the CEO, whether you're a sponsor or you're one of the CEOs on the rankings. That's the goal.
Man, that's great. I love your perspective on shit, man. I really do. I know that our company's history and growth and all that a little bit, but for the first time in my career, we've evolved into this company where my team will be talking about a client and describing an issue. And I'm, for the first time in my career, I'm going, well, who's that? Well, they're a client. Well, no, I know the name, but so you've got this whole business development apparatus and that's why leadership is so important. You've got your internal team that's executing. And if you've got great leadership, if you've got people that are really in it for their people to help accelerate their growth, then it's okay that I don't know every single client that does business with specificity, because the tools and the ideology that you garner and that you pass on, if your team is trained well and good and cares, then that leadership gets carried through. And I tell you what, I think in the industries that you're in, the home services field, that is such a tough industry because there are so many specious players in those marketplaces. I mean, we've all had, nightmare stories of contractors not showing up or taking 10 times
story
longer.
Story after story.
Yeah. And it's so hard for the consumer to figure out who's legit in this business. And I think starting with leadership is a fantastic idea, Greg. I really do. I wish you all the luck, man.
I appreciate it.
Well, where can people go check you out? What's your website URL, your contact info? How do you want people to reach out to you?
Yeah. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, or obviously booking an interview if you're on the top 100, or even if you're on the honorable mention, we do have an honorable mention list that's about 250 CEOs as well. So if you're on one of those, you can go to our website, power100.io, fill out a contact form there, and we'll be able to get in touch with you there.
And our podcast, Greg, goes through all the channels like Apple and Spotify and all that. So we get the bio. We'll put that contact info in there for you, so it'll be there as well, man. But we wish you much success, brother. Thanks for taking the time for coming on, and let's do this again in the near future and get a progress update here in a couple months where you're at.
Sounds good, Jason. Looking forward to it, man.
All right, Greg. Thanks a lot for the time, man. Appreciate it.
Take it easy.
All right, bye-bye.
You've just listened to another episode of With Absolute Specificity. Stay updated on big tech with insights from industry thought leaders. What are you waiting for? Catch more episodes by visiting the website at www.specificityinc.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future releases.